Welcome to everything you always wanted to know about flood insurance, but were afraid to ask. We have 4 instructors today. I'm Jason Harris. I'm the CEO of CartoFront, and I'm joined by Edna Hernandez, who's our customer success manager at CartoFront. We also have Erica Ostrander, who's the director of national sales for We Insure, and Chandra Willis, who's a licensed insurance agent working with the We Insure team. Today is the first of 4 trainings that we'll be doing next Wednesday, next Friday, and the following Wednesday, all at 11 o'clock Eastern time. And we'll continue to communicate that through Maine listings and through social media. And if you like how we do it today, please share with your brokerages and your friends, and Edna will share the login information again in the chat. So we have 3 really key goals today. The first 2 are critical. One is really, educate and help you be the most knowledgeable, confident, and profitable realtor in your market. Information is power then leads to success. And we really want to provide you with as much information today and resources and guided resources for you and your clients as we can, and always be available to help you. If that's 1A, 1A sub I would be understanding all the change that's going on with FEMA right now. It's their first major modernization in decades. A lot of changes to what's happening with National Flood Insurance Program, and a lot of nuance to it that we want to share. And then as important as the goals are, just that this is interactive. And so feel free to use the chat function as we go through here to ask questions, and we'll address them all at the end of the presentation. So we really have kind of 3 main chapters that we go through. The first one is around just flood overall today and climate change. Then I'll hand it over to Erica to talk about flood insurance and walk through terminology, the options that you have, both public and private, how insurance companies look at coverages and claims, comparison between public and private. And then I'll come back in and do a demo and talk about the flood resources that are available to you through Maine listings, and then we'll do Q&A. So let's talk about flood today. So there's a national concern. And what it is that climate change is affecting, risk with residential properties. And what you're looking at is independent research that was done about 2 years ago by a group of scientists, which basically projected out over 40 million residential locations are at risk of flooding in the United States, and that's today. And where it is green, you see a discrepancy between what FEMA's been doing with their maps and the use of data and predictive weather and all sorts of things that the private side has been looking at for years. Thus, when we get into the whole FEMA discussion, you'll see why they're modernizing now to take advantage of data and technology to accurately price risk and price insurance. And when we look a lot closer, specifically into the Maine listings market, you see that there's about 50,000 residential locations that are at risk across the state in its entirety. And I took a quick snapshot of York County, and you can see, and it's very, very small there, but FEMA projects out 4,800 properties at risk. The independent research is actually up closer to 8,800. So there's a discrepancy of 4,000 properties that they see risk in. And where it's darker, which is a bit more rural, there's even more risk percentage-wise between what FEMA has mapped historically and what this independent research is stating. And we're having a very difficult 21 just across the globe. Hurricane Ida really affected not just the Gulf, came through Louisiana, but as we know, New York and New Jersey were completely caught off guard, and they're projecting tremendous loss due to that hurricane. We talked a moment ago, there's wildfires throughout the West throughout this year. It's a very hot summer in the Pacific Northwest and Portland and Seattle. They had that heat dome for weeks. And then there were flash floods in Europe that wiped away towns in Germany and other parts of the interior. So this is happening. This is real, and unfortunately, this is where things are going to be going for the future. And what it does is, and we talked a little bit about this before we started the formal presentation, it makes for a challenging insurance landscape. Again, your market is probably on balance pretty good, and we've been looking at the flood insurance rates, and they're pretty reasonable for peace of mind, and even for those that are on flood zones, they're still pretty reasonable comparatively to other places like, South Florida, West Coast as it relates to wildfires. This was an interesting study that was released now almost a year ago. It's a bit on hold because of the pandemic and the fact that the real estate market is so hot. But what it basically said is climate change impacted property values in a study that they did in the south part of Florida. Now, again, Bell Harbor and Florida is a bit of a specific market. It doesn't speak for all markets. Yet the reality of climate change on a market and a loss of almost 7.5% in value over a 4-year period, again, pre-pandemic, is something to be concerned about and keep an eye on for all of us that are in real estate and or protecting real estate through insurance and the value of real estate. Back to kind of FEMA and National Flood Insurance, and I'm going to give a little bit of an overview here as to the history. So, and it's important, again, from a high level, just that we don't expect any expertise here. There's no quizzes, but it's important to understand the context. So the program started in 1968. It was a benevolent program. There were a bunch of floods throughout the country in the 60s. And the government decided that they would have some sort of program that would be available to all citizens. And it started as a very smart approach where the government could use its financial backbone to be able to help citizens out. And it worked quite fine for a long period of time. And I'll get to another slide showing some of the major storms. In 1992, when Hurricane Andrew went through South Florida, it tipped the economic scales of the program into a negative position, which further got accelerated with Katrina and other storms. And so in 2012, the government, under the Bigger Waters Act, reformed the flood program. And what happened was they didn't do it properly, and there was sticker shock in some instances of the new FEMA policies in places around the country. And policies went from a couple $1,000s to astronomical numbers of $49,000. There was examples of this. As you can imagine, the phone was ringing off the hook with FEMA and with Congress. So they reformed it in 2014. And since that time, many parties have been working to come up with this new notion of risk rating 2.0. And in 2015, when NAR got involved in it, it really helped kind of give some sort of bolster to this. So the fact that FEMA is modernizing things is not a new idea, but the fact that they're actually have gone ahead and done it now is, it takes a lot of courage by them, given everything that's going on. The headline is, it's inevitable that they had to modernize the program to make it on par with the private markets. The reality is it's a tough pill to swallow for all of us as citizens and as recipients of the insurance premiums. Again, over the history of time, they've taken in about $60 billion in premiums, but they've paid out almost 100 million. And these are some of the storms that they've paid out and how expensive it's been. Again, Andrew and Katrina were substantial and turned the program from being one that didn't cost taxpayers into one that did. And then Hurricane Harvey is relevant in the fact that most of the people touched by that storm in Texas were actually on low risk X zones. And so a lot of the claims came through people that really didn't have any protection. And it actually drove a lot of behavior changes. Ida, they haven't fully projected the cost, but we're seeing estimates of double digits in billions of dollars of loss. So what is risk rating 2.0? So basically what the government is doing now is they're moving to pricing each individual property by factors around the property itself. Historically, they use flood zones and flood maps to be able to price things in broad swaths. And so there was a lot of kind of standardization of the pricing across zip codes and things like that. Now going forward, risk rating 2.0 is actually looking at each property by the property. So its elevation, its size, its value. Everything's now customized to that specific property, and each property is going to be priced based on its risk and based on the risk rating formula that the government has. It's identical to what the private markets have been doing for decades, yet this is modernization in FEMA's world. Again, looking at the state of Maine, currently there are 7,700 FEMA policies in place. The expectation is that about 1 in 3 of them will actually see a decrease now with the new rating system, but 2 in 3 of them will see rates increase. We'll get into this specifically in a moment, but this is the broad approach for the state of Maine. We will provide a direct link to this information at the end of the presentation when Edna follows up with everybody. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Erica to walk through this. Erica is with We Insure, the Director of National Sales. We Insure is our national insurance agency partner with every market that we go into. We Insure is capable on service, free consultation, and binding our quotes into policies. And so with this, Erica, go ahead, and I'll just click slides when you're ready to go through. Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you all for letting me join you today. I wanted to cover a little bit of Flood 101 with you, and we'll be doing a Q&A after as well if there's more detailed information that you'd like. But so what is considered a flood? A flood is defined as an excess of water on land that is normally dry, affecting 2 or more acres of land or 2 or more properties. So, you know, that in itself is an interesting definition. You know, flood, if just your yard is affected and just one house, you know, that can throw it out of being considered a flood. So, you know, if you ever have any questions about that, please reach out to us. But floods can be caused by storms, hurricanes, snow, water backup from inadequate drainage, dams, and levees. So, you know, different states are going to have different causes of flood. Obviously, where I am in Orlando, we don't have the snow issue that you guys have in Maine. So, you know, importantly, what is not a flood? A flood is not considered to be covered if it is the result of an internal pipe break or a hole in the roof or broken windows. So definitely keep that in mind when discussing this with your buyers. Next slide, Jason. So again, what is flood insurance? Flood insurance protects your property in the event of a flood or a flood-related disaster. Flood insurance is not included in your homeowner's insurance policy. It is a separate insurance policy that must be purchased separately through an insurance agent. So there are some companies occasionally that might offer a flood endorsement or something like that, but they can be very basic, and you know, it's important to buy a separate flood insurance policy. Next slide, Jason. So the big topic that we're all dealing with in the insurance side, and also you guys on the real estate side, the new FEMA risk rating 2.0, the rates took effect on October 1st, and it's a big change in our world. You know, we're used to talking about these special flood hazard zones, A, E, V, E, and then X and C zones. Well, now it's priced by the individual property based on elevation, distance to water, and replacement costs. So the statistics are that 23% will see a rate decrease and 77% will see rates going up. I will say, I think in Florida, might be worse than that. I think pretty much everyone's rates are going up in Florida for this risk rating 2.0. And they've capped the maximum rate now at $12,125 per year. If the seller does have FEMA insurance, it can be assumed and transferred to the buyer at purchase. Next slide, Jason.
Yeah, and that's a really critical thing to remember too, especially if you have someone on a flood zone close to the coast.
Absolutely. Renewals are the pricing is being factored in April 1st, 2022. Again, they're repricing this by individual property based on elevation, distance to water, and replacement costs. So, you know, we're seeing even in the Florida market, things that were $500 going to thousands of dollars in some cases. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis. There is a 18 to 25% cap on increases on the renewal side. But on the new business, we're definitely seeing a huge increase in what we might have quoted something for a month ago. Community rating system discounts. So that will still apply anywhere from 5 to 45% in discount for that. Elevation certificates are optional, as has been the case, but they can bring the cost down significantly. So if you do have an elevation certificate, it definitely helps to get it to the insurance agent so they can review it and see about the pricing. Next slide. Next slide. So, you know, what kind of flood insurance is out there? The CartoFront platform offers both the NFIP, so the National Flood Insurance Program, and also a private option, Beyond Floods Insurance, which is underwritten by National General Insurance, which is a subsidiary of Allstate. It is rated A- by AM Best and Company. Beyond Floods, we're writing a lot of that, and the rates are really competitive, and it is a great option for private flood. Next slide. Here's some of the differences. So Beyond Floods does have a little more restrictions on what they will take. So they're only going to be an option for your single family homes. They will not do townhomes, mobile homes. The National Flood Insurance Program does offer single family townhomes, condos, mobile homes. Neither offer coverage for land. That's because in flood insurance is for the structure. So if there's nothing on the property, then you don't need flood insurance for land.
So Erica, if any of our realtor friends are working with someone who's going to build a home right on land, should they just call you and you can answer their questions directly?
Yes. So yeah, if you have someone building on a piece of property, we can usually figure out the rating for it, especially if we get information on the structure that's being built there, and the address, and especially if you have an elevation certificate or something like that for the property. Typically, when you're building a new home, there will be some form of elevation portion to the structure of building the home. So we're happy to help you talk through that, especially even with a builder, if you want us to get in touch with them and make sure that we get the information we need, we're happy to do that. How do the NFIP and private flood differ? So the National Flood Insurance Program, as Jason talked about earlier, it is the government FEMA direct supplier of public flood insurance. It's offered by many companies, and the pricing it's a set amount across the board. So, you're not going to get a different price from State Farm than you would from Allstate for the National Flood Insurance Program product. It will be the risk rating 2.0 that we've been talking about. So it's based on individual parcel. We used to have a nice chart that we could use for the X zones and the C zones to tell you how much the property would be. Now we do not have that. So we're going to have to actually run the information. And it is set on the individual parcel by elevation of the latitude and longitude coordinates. And again, the renewals are capped at 18% beginning April 1st, 2022. The private market, so the CartoFront's working with Beyond Flood's private flood, and it is supplied by National General, which is, like we said, a division or a subsidiary of Allstate. And the pricing is also based by individual parcel. So it's similarly priced. It's not a set price chart that we can look at, but given the sophisticated pricing models, private flood typically does not require an elevation certificate. So that's a nice feature. If we get the address and the information, we can get you a quote without having to do the elevation certificate portion of it. Next slide. And this is a huge part of where they really differ. So the National Flood Insurance Program, it is capped at $250,000 for the building and $100,000 for personal property. Beyond Floods, you can go up to 1.5 million on the building, and 50% of the building coverage for personal property. So as you can see, that's a huge difference. If you're selling a home that's a more expensive home, you're able to get pricing for the whole structure. And the deductibles are a big difference. So the NFIP is $1,250 deductibles for both building and personal property. And Beyond Floods, you have a lot more options. So, you can structure the pricing, if somebody's more risk tolerant and, maybe wants to self-insure more and get the premium down, you can offer that 10,000 deductible for a $1.5 million home. So it gives you more options on the private flood side. And Beyond Floods also offers loss of use and other building structures. So the NFIP, it's only going to be the primary building, the primary home. It's not going to cover outbuildings, things like that. So you're able to cover that with Beyond Floods. Next slide. Another difference between the NFIP and Beyond Floods. With the NFIP, there is a 30-day waiting period for coverage to take effect unless the coverage is required by a lender. So if somebody's purchasing flood for the first time, maybe they're not a new buyer. There's just a hurricane coming and they decide they want insurance today. The day they buy it, it's not going to take effect for 30 more days. So that's a pretty good waiting period. Beyond Floods is a 5-day waiting period for coverage to take effect, unless again, it's required by a lender. So both of those, if you do have a new buyer that has a mortgage that it's required to get flood insurance, there's no waiting period. The NFIP is definitely going to be the most affordable option for higher risk properties. The NFIP has historically insured high risk properties with subsidized pricing. Beyond Floods is going to be a really good option for your low to medium risk properties. They'll do excess flood insurance above your NFIP limits. So, you know, there's still going to be a place for the NFIP, but for a lot of buyers now, it's going to be a better option to go with the private flood route due to the pricing with the risk 2.0. And historically, you know, it was a lot of work to get quotes on certain properties if they were in higher risk zones or even low risk zones. CartoFront's made it really easy to get these quotes for you. So I think it's important for every single buyer that you're working with, get the free quote through the MLS, and Jason's going to do a demo on it. But, you know, I can't stress enough, get that free quote. It's really easy, and it's going to be an accurate quote. Occasionally there might be something where you need to talk to me about, you know, a tricky one or something, but definitely take that free quote. Next slide, Jason. So go into a little more detail about what flood insurance does cover. So I've alluded to it, but it's going to cover your building. So that's the physical structure and the foundation of the home, the electrical and plumbing, central air conditioning, furnaces, water heaters, refrigerators, stoves, built-in appliances, all of your flooring, permanently installed paneling, window blinds, cabinets. It's going to cover detached garages and or buildings, and separate building property policy coverage is required for those detached garages and other buildings. And like we said, the Beyond Floods product is going to take care of outbuildings. It also covers debris removal, which can be really expensive if you have a flood. So that's an important piece. Next slide. It also covers your contents, so your personal belongings. I say this is anything, if you were to pick up your house and shake it, what would fall out of the windows is going to be your contents. So, you know, your food, things you don't even think about sometimes, you know, your freezer goes out, all that food that spoils, washers, dryers, portable ACs, portable microwaves, you know, anything that's not stuck into the house. And then, you know, your valuable items, artwork up to a certain amount. Next slide. And really importantly, what does flood insurance not cover? And that is any damage caused by moisture, mildew, or mold that is not related to or caused by a flood. So, you know, it's not a maintenance policy. If the air conditioner goes out and the home molds, that's not going to be covered. If a pipe bursts and mold grows, that's not going to be covered. Currency, precious metals, valuable papers, property and belongings outside of the building, such as, you know, your trees, seawalls, fences, swimming pools, and hot tubs. That's a big one. And then financial losses that are caused by business interruption or loss of use. So unfortunately, you know, even if you do work out of your home and you have to move, it's not going to cover your business interruption or your loss of use. And then no landscaping or exterior features are going to be covered. Next slide. So this is an important distinction for flood insurance. So when there is a flood insurance claim, how are the payments calculated? So there's replacement cost value, which is the cost to repair or replace the insured property. And if it is your primary residence, both the building and the contents are going to be covered for replacement cost value. Actual cash value is your replacement cost minus depreciation for wear and tear. So unless the home is your primary residence, contents are only going to be covered for ACV. So for example, you know, if you have a couch and it is in a rental home and it is 15 years old, they're going to calculate what was the price of it 15 years ago and then depreciate it down. So you're going to get a smaller payout on your contents on anything that's not your primary home. Next slide.
So Erica, thank you so much. And we're going to have a Q&A in a moment or two. I just want to kind of walk through the resources available to everybody as part of our work with Maine listings. I think that the main thing, and hopefully we've conveyed that in the first part of the presentation here, is you are our customer as the realtor. We, to Erica's point a little while ago, we want to be there for you throughout your workflow. So either on the buy side or the sell side, right? You have a workflow, you have a sales process that starts with assessments. And we've, the majority of the time, as you are, or people that you work with are looking at the market, again, either on the buy side, representing a buyer or a seller. It's important to utilize the free quotes to understand what total cost going into it would be for flood insurance as you're ruling in or ruling out properties on the buy side, or if you're representing a property on the sell side, so you can market appropriately the risk and the cost. Where we think we really add tremendous value is when you get to that point in the process where you're looking at property A, B, and or C to make an offer. And that's where you're looking at total cost of ownership and what one property might cost and their insurance costs, not just flood, versus another and another. And it's really important that we're able to be there and help you, maybe even get on the phone with We Insure and Erica and Chandra and their team to really understand specifically what the cost is going to be of insurance. And then once you have that contract in hand and your buyer is moving towards getting everything they need for the closing, we want to be there to be able to help you with any questions that they have. And if we have the opportunity for We Insure to bind that insurance and secure that protection for the home, great. We would love that opportunity. We also recognize that you have personal relationships, but the headline is, that whether it's our qualified insurance agency people or yours, really important to involve them, obviously, to make sure everything goes smoothly. I'm going to do a demo here. Let me switch screens. Hang on one second here. I'm going to go into Flex MLS. Can everybody see this now? I'm in the Flex MLS platform. Is that a yes?
As I can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, so again, I see Greg's jumped on also too. Greg, thanks for joining us today. And Kathy, thanks for your leadership. We're thrilled to be part of Maine Listings. As you come into Flex MLS, there's two different locations we wanted to make you aware of. The first is we are located here on the products page, and we have a link there to all the resources through a landing page that Edna put together. So a quick link, and you have access directly to a landing page that has all the resources at your disposal that we've shared with you today. For example, this entire presentation is also part of what we call an ebook that's available online, and it's a great resource for you and sharing with your clients. This is a high-level overview of all the key information that we've gone through today, the side-by-side comparison that Erica just went through, as well as some FAQs that are very easy to navigate. So, we encourage you to take a look at that, download that, share that with your clients as you work with them. Back to the menu, I'm going to go into the active listings right now and do a demo of the product. Here's the list information. We are located within the detail. And depending on the view that you take, when it's the full screen, you can see our little raindrop right here. And when it's expanded and you can see different listings, it's under the more section right here. Now, I'm going to caveat one thing. We've had a very challenging time with the implementation of risk rating 2.0, and it's affecting everybody who has access to the government's new risk program. Across the country, they're making this available right now. It's kind of a burn-in phase. The technology has been a little intermittent due to timing out issues. I don't need to get into all the technology of it. So while we're able to reach into it, that doesn't mean it's always returning a quote on the government side. So I'm going to go into this property right here. This is a lovely looking place in Bar Harbor. Going to get into the detail, and I'm going to request a quote. And this is all live, so we'll see what comes back here. We're taking all the data, we're scrubbing it, taking the data from FlexMLS, scrubbing it, and sending it off to National General, sending it off to the government, and voila. Okay, good. We got a full quote here. Let me just kind of walk through what you see. So you see the property on the left-hand side. We validate the MLS number that you requested and the address, and we've brought along the listing price. And then right off the bat, while the terminology is going to ultimately be phased out over time, we recognize that most people are comfortable and understand the flood zone information. So this identifies this property as X, which is an area of low to moderate risk. Flood insurance is available, and as we've talked about, it's always great to get a quote. But you don't need flood insurance to purchase this property. We've put this hover over so that you, as a realtor, can get more comfortable with the different terminology of the different zones. And if you want to, you can click on this little link and actually get to FEMA's a definition page very easily. In the middle here is the actual side-by-side coverage. And let me kind of walk through how this is. So the first column is on the right-hand side is FEMA. And it's their new pricing for this property. They view this as $411 for their standard $250,000 for the building, as Erica talked about, and $100,000 of contents. And again, very limited other buildings coverage. You'd have to talk to Erica and Chandra about that, and there's no loss of use coverage. Side by side to that is beyond floods, and I'll explain why we have two columns. The first is what they call the essential product. And what we've done is we have an identical apples to apples, 250, 100,000 on the base coverage. And as you can see, it's a little slightly better here at $397 as per Beyond Floods is pricing. The middle column is their enhanced, and Erica mentioned Beyond Floods can go all the way up to 1.5 million in insurance for flood. And you can see, because the pricing here, you would need more than the minimum of 250,000 for replacement cost. So what we've done is we've stair-stepped this up and given you an example of what coverage would look like for 300,000, which is slightly less than replacement cost. Replacement cost would be, let's see, I'm trying to do some math in my head. 80% of 465 would be what? Probably around 370,000. So we're a little light on that, but you can start to see what the pricing is. And so for a little bit more pricing, you can get more coverage for the building, and certainly more coverage for loss of use and other buildings on the property. So again, total cost of ownership, risk reward, for a flood zone X, which has low to moderate risk, any way you go here, it's peace of mind type of insurance coverage in the event something, dramatic happened for that property. Then right now we have an interim solution. We've again, based on risk rating 2.0, the government's got a backlog of assigning information to the different insurance agencies. We're working with We Insure right now to put them right here visibly with their logo and a direct contact to them. But in the interim, if you are interested in pursuing this, we have a workaround. So I can put in my email address and then hit submit. And then it sends it to us and we relay it right to Erica and her team to be able to follow up with you.
A quick question, Jason.
Yes.
When you take a look at the listed price, it's $465. That listed price includes land and the buildings set upon the land. How do they factor in, and what's the factoring in for the structure versus the land? Because they're not going to insure the land; they're going to insure whatever gets damaged.
Excellent question. Erica, do you want to handle that for us, please?
Sure. So, Greg, typically, well, we do some rough math sometimes for the replacement costs with square footage and things like that. But we actually, when we're doing a homeowner's quote, all of the homeowner carriers require us to do a replacement cost estimator to bind. So that's typically what we go off of. And I would say right now things are probably, well, at least in Florida right now, are probably 125 to 150 a square foot replacement cost is kind of rough math, but definitely, if any of you are curious about what insurance company replacement cost estimate would be on a property, just reach out to us and we can factor that in for you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple more slides here. Let me just kind of finish them up and then we'll go to the questions. I shared this earlier. This is the resource page on Flex MLS. We also have a direct link on our CartoFront.com site, and we'll put that as part of the bundle as we go forward here and send this to everybody. I showed the ebook. We'll have that link in there as well. Great resource. And again, please share with your clients. I think that's a great value add for them to have. Here are some direct links that we'll make available. It's also on the inside cover of the ebook. FEMA has a whole webpage dedicated to risk rating 2.0. We'll have the state report that I showed earlier, a link to We Insure, a link to Beyond Floods, and then let me put a plug in for My Flood Status. We know that they're integrated with you in Maine listings. They're a valued partner, referral partner of ours as well. Back to Erica's point about elevation certificates, cost of insurance, going and getting a LOMA, which is a letter of certificate to overrule kind of how flood insurance is priced. It's a great investment. It does cost money out of your pocket or a buyer's pocket. It's about $30 for one of their flood zone reports. Worth every penny of it because they're really accurate and good. And most times you'll be able to use that validation to work on trying to get your insurance rates to a more reasonable level. Again, I can't thank Erica and Chandra enough for their participation today. They are available. They're very happy to help you at any time. And again, feel free to reach out to them. All of their information will be part of the follow-up as well. And last but not least, if there's something about our platform or you're having challenges, either accessing information, the quotes aren't reading back, please let us know right away. Edna and I want to be as gold standard service to Maine listings as we can be. We're very receptive, nearly immediately, and just reach out to us at info@cartofront.com. And with that, let's turn it over. Edna's going to facilitate the Q&A. Thank you again for all of your participation today, and let's get to some questions.
And if anybody wants to type in a question in the chat box, feel free to do so. I'll read them out loud.
Great. I think we've answered everything for everybody. So everyone's now a flood insurance expert. Okay.
One question in the chat box is this: what is the community rating system discount?
Erica, if you could handle that one. Yeah.
Sure. So the community rating system discounts are, my understanding is that they're built into the quote. So it's not anything you really need to worry about. It's just kind of different communities have different flood maps and things like that FEMA is using to pull from. And I can get you a little more detail on that after the call, but that's pretty much, it's not something that we physically have to plug into a quote or anything like that.
So as part of the government's longstanding program, they've encouraged local communities to submit to be part of this program. So it's kind of a coverage by, entire zip codes and what have you. They factor that into their rating system, and they just deliver the ratings just through that. So that's how that works. What we can do, Edna and I will look with Erica and her team as to what communities in Maine are specifically participating in that, and be able to share that back with you. If you're in a community that's doing it, great, you're getting the benefit of that program. And if you're not, it might be worth talking with your local leadership to investigate what the process is to be part of it. It's in a sense the government looking for kind of a group buys and group insurance so that they can help deliver the best rates to communities in Mass.
Thank you. We also have a comment from Raylene. Thank you. We're trying to provide as much beneficial information as we can for you.
Yeah, we've also taped this, and Edna and I are going to consolidate it and post it up online, and then make that link available probably early next week. Because not everybody can make it at 11 o'clock Eastern time on a certain date. That'll be on our YouTube channel, and we'll share that with Kathy and her team.
Excuse me, I had missed the very beginning. And so hours that we can reach out to reinsure for any questions regarding quotes, days of the week that you're not working, and hours, what would be your window?
So typically my team, and we have 7 producers now on my team, and we're growing rapidly. But all of us are East Coast based, so we're mostly working from like 8 to 6 most days. However, a lot of my team are workaholics also, so we answer stuff outside of that time.
Sure. Okay. And are there days that you're closed? Saturday, Sundays that you closed?
Yeah, so we're not in the office on Saturdays and Sundays, but again, sometimes we are doing emails and stuff on Saturdays, so we're pretty available.
Thank you.
And I'll give a quick example. So we had an inquiry yesterday, early stages here, and Erica and her team took it, and it started with flood, but then naturally the conversation got into homeowners. So, while we are offering this free service regarding flood, we insurers happy to be able to help in a multitude of P&C. So.
Quick question, just because a year or two ago, I had a client looking at a property that was near the ocean and it was in a flood zone, but also a hurricane zone.
Yep.
How would something that's maybe dual zoned like that affect obtaining insurance?
So, well, especially in Maine specifically, the good thing is a lot of our standard markets, right, homeowners up there. So we have access to 150 plus carriers across the country. Florida is definitely the toughest, in my opinion, to work with. All of the policies here in Florida have a hurricane option built into them. However, you know, if it is something where maybe one of the standard markets won't take it, we do have access to excess and surplus lines as well. For, you know, there are occasionally homes, especially on the beach, or maybe that are really too close to the water that an Allstate or a Travelers doesn't want to write. And in that case, we would go to the excess and surplus markets and find that hurricane coverage that you need. But it wouldn't really, I mean, other than with the risk rating 2.0, it might be a high price because of where it is. But the hurricane would be a separate policy with the homeowners typically. So.
Great, thank you. It's nice to know that we have that available now, because like I said at the time, my only thing was to advise my client to call their insurance company and see, and at the time they started looking at it, it was enough to scare them away. But I think this would give them more comfort if it was one they decided they wanted to pursue. So once again, thank you. I think this is a great bonus for our clients.
So, you know, if you ever come across anything like that, you can shoot us an email to that quotes at We Insure Group, and we can kind of take a look at it and see, you know, especially there's markets we have that are specific to coastal. So that might be one that would go well with that company, but it's nice to have a lot of options.
Yeah, and just a quick note too about We Insure. So while we have this program with National General, and they are a major, you know, supplier of insurance for our program and also for We Insure. We Insure has appointments with 150 different insurance carriers nationwide. And so, you know, NatGen is the first line of defense, but if NatGen doesn't work, you know, Erica has the ability. We want to service you. At the end of the day, this is about you helping your clients get keys in hands for their dream home and having protection. And so, you know, Erica and the team can do what they need to do to help you get what you need for your clients. Okay, we're coming up on the top of the hour, and Charlotte, thank you. Charlotte just took a quick look. Sometimes these, so again, you might get an error where the government's not providing a quote. That's the risk rating issue. There might be a problem where we're not getting a NatGen, and that might be a variety of different things. One of which is the rural lat and long has been really finicky for us. We've been talking with Kathy about how to improve that reliability on getting the quotes back, and we're working through that diligently. And then sometimes just we're making new connections right now with both NatGen, We Insure, and FEMA, and so our system's been a little challenged, but each day we're working on greater reliability. So if you hear of these things, please email us right away, and our tech team will get on it right off the bat and understand the error message and get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you for all your time today. Really appreciate it. And again, Kathy and Greg, thank you for including us in Maine listings. We're super excited to be on the journey with you, and really excited to learn more about your market and service your market.
Yeah, we're excited to have you guys on board. This provides some great value for our participants as well as for their clients. So it's great to know that we've got this information and it'll be readily available. Thank you again. Great presentation.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Take
Thank
care.
you all.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.